If you've ever wondered whether you're neurodivergent or just felt like you see the world a little differently, you're not alone. I was diagnosed autistic at 25, and suddenly, so many things I never had words for started to make sense. Here, I share the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful parts of life through an autistic lens. My name is Elena Carroll, and if you're looking for answers, understanding, or just an autistic friend, you're in the right place. I think a lot of people believe that being an autistic adult means that you are fully independent, responsible, and live a quote-unquote life like everybody else. And I don't think that that is always the case. I think it looks very different depending on the person. If you're autistic, maybe you relate to the experience of, being this grown-up child. Maybe you didn't even get to be a child, get to have this full experience of being a child because you were so aware of yourself and so unsure of yourself. That was definitely the case for me in my childhood. You then might have experienced the issue of growing older and not being able to keep up with, again, the quote-unquote conventional successful milestones that everyone else around you we're doing. And I want to know why this is. That's what the point of today's video is. Why society misunderstands autistic adulthood. So I am currently 29 years old, and it astounds me when I talk to people my age and how different our lives look. Because now I'm at this age where people are getting married. People have been in these long-term relationships. They are having children. They own houses. They are doing such serious adult things. And there's a part of me that is like, oh my God, what? Why are you having a baby so young? Why are you getting married so young? But it's not actually that it's so young. It's that up here in my brain, I'm feeling so far behind them. It amazes me that in the same timelines, we've had the same amount of years on this earth, that this is where they've come to, that they feel ready to do these things now for themselves. And I feel like I've just been surviving most of my life. Now that I've realized that I'm autistic, I feel as though I can start piecing together my life, my identity, my self-esteem, and all the things that may have been present for other people a lot earlier in their lives. But this is just it. The people that are getting married, having kids, buying houses, and have their life figured out to this point oftentimes weren't dealing with the same issues as undiagnosed autistic people were. They weren't having to fight for their lives, their mental health, their self-esteem, their identity issues, because they were allowed to just follow the natural progression of their life. They got to be a child when it was time to be a child. They got to be a teenager when it was time to be a teenager. And now, as they're entering or have been in early adulthood for a few years, they have things figured out. For autistic people who have been undiagnosed for most of their life, it's like we're playing catch-up. We've just been focusing on our mental health, probably, been in mental hospitals, dealing with misdiagnoses or health issues. There were far bigger priorities just in our survival than actually knowing who we were and understanding our identity. I think one of the hardest parts about being autistic and stepping into adulthood is realizing that oftentimes our timelines don't fit with other people. For many of us, adulthood doesn't look like the typical timelines of marriage, kids, the house. It actually looks more like knowing who we are and feeling good in that, nurturing our mental health and caring for ourselves. That's why support along the way is so incredibly important, and this is where I put a big emphasis on therapy, and I have done since I was 6 years of age. BetterHelp is the paid partner for today's video, which is a platform that is designed to make therapy accessible and simple. You just need to fill out a questionnaire and you will be matched with a credentialed therapist within days. And if the first match doesn't feel right, you can actually switch therapists at no extra cost. BetterHelp has thousands of reviews and a strong reputation, so you can feel really confident that you are getting quality care with people who actually understand neurodivergence. which is such an important thing. If you would like to give it a try, click the link at the top of the description or go to betterhelp.com/Elena Carroll for 10% off your first month. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for being the paid partner of today's video, and let's jump into it. I think that this video felt so important for me to make today because I'm very aware that what my life is going to look like in the future, and I'm sure I can speak for a lot of you here when I say this about myself, my future life will not resemble the lives of adults that I was around as a child. And what I mean by this is I didn't see anyone who was, diagnosed autistic. I didn't see what that kind of independence can look like. I didn't see someone going to therapy. I didn't see someone being on medication for their mental health. I didn't see someone spending their life focused on nurturing their inner child. And I guess these are things that I want to do. I want to be surrounded by animals. I want to be surrounded by things that make me happy, and that might mean that it's deemed as childish, soft toys, music, knickknacks around my house. I think it's so important to give words to the futures that a lot of us might lead one day. I think this feeling of being behind in life is something that I've always felt, except when I was a child. That is, I always felt like I was ahead of everyone else as a child. I always felt like, why are they being so childish? Like, I'm so much more mature. I'm so aware of who I am, of what I am. But then as school set in, responsibilities became more of a thing, life got harder for me. School was something I felt behind in. I think I was too focused on my anxiety and my presence in the class to actually be focused on the fact that I'm there to learn and to do work. And so I kind of fell behind initially at school. When friends started to get boyfriends when I was a teenager, I was repulsed by this fact. I felt pressured myself that I needed to like boys and kiss boys and have sex with boys, when none of that was what I wanted to do, because I literally felt 8 years old. I questioned my sexuality. I didn't know what any of that meant. I didn't know why it didn't feel good to actually have crushes on boys. I didn't feel brave enough to start driving until I was 25, and I think I got my first car at 26. I didn't leave the country until I was 28, and I've never really been responsible with money. I've never known how to manage my money, and I think that I'm paying the price for my lack of understanding with money now at 29. And so I kind of just share this as a bit of a reality check, because I know social media particularly, it's just one big highlight reel. It just shows people, thriving. And it's not to say that I'm not thriving, because in a lot of areas I am where a lot of people want to be. But it's all a spectrum, right? I think that there are things that I would love to have done better in my life and have known more in my life. And I'm kind of playing catch up. I think that this is a common feeling that I always feel, is I'm forever playing catch up. I want to break down some myths that society may still hold around adult autism. Myth 1, autistic adults grow out of it. I think a lot of people, a lot of the research, when you look up autism, it's all directed to children. And I don't think that people really recognize that autism goes into adulthood. And if it does, it also has a certain look. It might be that someone has to have a carer, or they're not able to live independently. And while this is still a part of the autism experience, it is not the experience for everyone. And that is what I'm trying to highlight here, is autism is a spectrum, and just I'm trying to drill that in to neurotypical minds, to open up their minds. Autism is lifelong. The reality is it just looks different with age. How I present now was very different to how I presented as a child. I was a very, very shy child. In fact, A lot of people might have called me mute. I didn't really ever talk when I was out in public. In fact, when I first went to kindergarten, I didn't speak, for the first 6 months that I was there. And it took a Christmas party that the kindergarten was holding, and my mum and my brother being there, these comforts along with this excitement of Christmas for me to actually be able to talk. And my mum was approached by some of the teachers and said, this is the first time we've seen her talk, we didn't realize that she actually could speak. Now it looks like I can't shut up. Now I'm talking to a camera, talking to so many people online. I'm clearly not afraid to be perceived and be approached socially. So it just changes over time with different experiences, different lessons we learn, and I think that this is applicable to neurotypicals as well. Myth 2, independence looks the same for everybody. The reality of that is support needs vary, and independence is kind of a personal thing. What I deem as being independent, someone else might not believe that they need that kind of independence in their life, or they can do what I consider as independence with ease. They don't even have to think about it. So the first thing that comes to mind with this is, airports. Airports and flying have been some of my biggest roadblocks, mental roadblocks, that I have only recently overcome within the last 18 months of my life. And now I'm in a position where I am able to fly a little bit more confidently. And I think that this has come through the Sunflower Lanyard, which is such an amazing little tool used for hidden disabilities. It has opened up my world. This is what being independent means. I don't have to rely on someone else to fly with me to get me to my destination. But at the same time, what I deem as independent, someone else may not. Someone else may not even question flying. They might not even question having to have a support person or needing to use a Sunflower Lanyard tool because it just came so naturally to them and it was just so easy to them. All of this to say, it's a spectrum, and you get to decide what you deem as independence and what makes you feel confident. Myth 3. I think that this one is very applicable to neurotypical people, and that is success means masking and everyone has to do it in order to fit in and get by. The reality is, no, this isn't true, and this isn't the case for autistic people. It literally cannot be the case for autistic people. That much masking actually leads to burnout, and this is something that we have to learn. I think neurotypical standards place a lot of importance, a lot of emphasis on masking in order to get by. Definitely within a career, you've got to climb that ladder and do whatever it takes to get to the top. And I don't think that this applies to autistic people. We really value our authenticity, and we sure as hell value being able to take that mask off. And having to keep a mask on in particular situations, I think, is not only very detrimental to our mental health, but it isn't sustainable to our physical health long term. Myth 4. Adult equals neurotypical milestones. And the reality is, no, we set our own milestones. We definitely might have felt that pressure from our parents, from our friends, from our mentors, caregivers, bosses to keep up with these neurotypical milestones. And sure, we might have tried to adopt them for ourselves as well. We might have tried to chase them for ourselves. But what we quickly learn is they aren't actually that important. And I want you to think about it. If you've been having to deal with poor mental health, self-esteem issues, identity problems, all while trying to keep up with these quote-unquote normal neurotypical milestones, you've had to work twice as hard to do what everyone else does. And this was because you were born into a world that wasn't designed for your brain. And I think the earlier that we start to realize this, the sooner we can come to our own set of goals and we can start determining what success is for us. And this looks different for everybody. Why do these misunderstandings around adult autism exist? Well, I think for one that there's a lack of representation of autism within the media. If you're not the smart brainy kid, it's hard to know what your place is. You then might start to just look for neurotypical goals and standards as being what you should be chasing for your own life. Not only that, but I think that most of the autism research is heavily focused on children, and so there isn't a lot of understanding around what it means to live a full life as a autistic adult. Society also values conformity and productivity. So having the 9-to-5 job and having a job itself is what deems you as being a valuable member of society. And if you don't do that, if you aren't able to maintain that, then you are seen as less than. There's also internalized ableism, and this can come from autistic adults themselves. They are self-blaming because of setting these neurotypical standards. So let's just reframe here for 1 second what autistic adulthood means. Autistic adulthood means not actually following milestones that you're told by somebody else that they should be important for you. It actually means deciding yourself what a valuable, successful, rich feeling life means. To not only support your mental health, your nervous system, but overall peace and enjoyment. I'm definitely starting to get a lot more specific about what this means to me. And so for me currently, I'm putting a big emphasis on the content that I am trying to create online at the moment, This has been such a big focus. I am trying to make this my job because it feels the most fulfilling thing for me. I'm not driven by money. I'm not driven by dollars. I'm not driven by the success. I'm driven by the impact and the good feeling that I get from talking, sharing my pain with others, and other people finding comfort in that. I'm trying to also find my people in this world, and I think that what this looks like is a very, very small group. I've already established such amazing people in my life now, but I'm only just starting to get specific on who deserves to be in my life, because there was a time where I just let in anyone and everyone who wanted to befriend me. So just being more specific about who actually brings me peace. I've only just realized my sexuality within the last year or so, and that has brought me a freedom and a sense of peace for my future that I have been waiting for so long. I used to have dread when I used to think about ending up with a man, marrying a man. That used to, be something that I felt forced into because of what I was told my life, my future should look like. I saw friends of mine finding fulfillment with men, and I wasn't finding the same, so perhaps I put my own pressures around that, and now I'm excited for my future with the person that I want to be with. I'm only now learning what love means, and that is, I feel, of such an incredible thing, but I also feel very late to the party at the same time. So I guess my idea of success is just feeling at peace with the decisions that I've made. I want to be surrounded by animals. I want to be surrounded by things that bring me joy, whether they're deemed as childish or not. It doesn't matter to me. At the end of the day, society misunderstands adult autism because it measures us against neurotypical standards, expectations, and timelines. But I think autistic adulthood can be a far more richer, more intentional experience than most neurotypicals' lives are, because we are so focused. We are so focused on actually living a life that means something to us, because if you were undiagnosed, you probably spent so many years giving your life up for what other people thought and for the perception of others. So with that, I'm going to end there. I just wanted to kind of make this video as kind of a reframe of what autistic adulthood looks like and how important it is to get specific on what you want your future to be, rather than letting someone else tell you what it should be. So I hope you guys found this video valuable. If you guys are looking for your own autism or neurodivergent community, I mention this in each video of mine, but I host 1 hour talks every Thursday all around different autism experiences with other people, and we all kind of come on there and share our own experiences. It's such a valuable 1 hour session. I leave feeling so refreshed and healed, and it's kind of like a therapy session in some way. So if you would like to come along to this week's session, I will pop the link down below for you guys. Otherwise, I've always got my social media platforms down below if you'd also like to come and say hi. Thank you again to BetterHelp for being the paid partner of today's video, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye. Mwah.